A young man is running, alone before dawn. Oregon, 1962. He's 24, and the fog is so thick he can barely see the road under his own feet. He's got a Stanford business degree, an accountant's job waiting, and a life mapped out for him. Safe, sensible, dead. And he can't stand it, because in his head, there's another road. A crazy idea. He wants to import running shoes from Japan and sell them out of the trunk of his car. Everyone he loves will tell him it's insane. Keep that image. The rail-thin kid on the empty road with nothing but a hunch. Because one morning, 18 years from now, this same man will wake up worth $178 million and feel something you would never in 1,000 years guess. First, he has to do the one thing the idea demands. Just don't stop. Before the idea can live, it has to survive the man in the recliner. Phil's father, a proper newspaper publisher who worships respectability. Phil stands in the TV nook and asks to borrow against a future that doesn't exist yet, to fly around the world chasing shoes. He's braced for fat chance. Instead, his father sighs and says yes, hands him the money. It should feel like a victory. But Phil knows the truth underneath it. His father is buying him one shot to get the foolishness out of his system before he grows up and gets a real job. Nobody in that room believes the idea will work. Not the banker he'll beg later. Not his father. Maybe not even Phil. Which is exactly why he has to prove them all wrong. So he books the ticket to Japan. Japan, 1962. Phil walks into the Onitsuka Shoe Company in Kobe to pitch himself as their American distributor, and realizes, sitting across from a row of executives, that they're about to ask the name of his company. He doesn't have a company. He doesn't have anything. Panic. His eyes flick to a memory. The blue ribbons he won running track, pinned to his childhood wall. Blue ribbon? He blurts. I represent Blue Ribbon Sports of Portland, Oregon. It's a lie held together by nerve. And it works. They shake his hand and grant him the American West. He orders his first samples, $50 of shoes that won't arrive for months. He's not a businessman. He's a kid who just invented a company in the time it takes to say 2 words, and now he has to make it real. Before he flies home, Phil does something no sensible entrepreneur would do. He keeps traveling, around the whole world, and he climbs the Acropolis in Athens. There, half in ruins, stands a small temple to a Greek goddess, the goddess of victory. Her name is Nike. Phil stares at it, this weathered monument to winning, and something files itself away in the back of his mind. Quiet, unnamed, waiting. He doesn't know yet why it matters. He just feels the pull of it, the way he feels the pull of the crazy idea. Remember her, because years from now, when this fragile little company needs one perfect word to carry it, that goddess is going to come back from someone else's dream. For now, Phil goes home to Oregon and waits for a box of shoes. The shoes finally arrive, and Phil mails 2 pairs to the one man whose opinion he'd die for, Bill Bowerman. His old track coach at Oregon, a legendary tyrant who once told him, "The cowards never started, and the weak died along the way." That leaves us. Bowerman doesn't just approve the shoes. Over 2 hamburgers, he asks to be Phil's partner. 50-50. Phil is stunned. His coach, his god, wants in. They settle at 51-49, so someone can break a tie. Bowerman's stake, $500, comes out of his wife's Christmas Club savings account. That's the whole empire at the start. A nervous accountant, an aging coach, and a housewife's Christmas money. Against Adidas. Against the world. It's absurd. And it's exactly the kind of odds Bowerman lives for. Now Phil has to actually sell the things. So he loads the Tigers into the trunk of his green Plymouth Valiant and drives to track meets across the Pacific Northwest. No store, no pitch deck. He just walks up to runners at the finish line and puts a lighter, faster shoe in their hands. His very first customer is his own mother, who buys a pair for $7 to make her boy feel like a real merchant. And a strange thing happens. The runners come back. They tell their friends. Bowerman keeps preaching his gospel. If you have a body, you are an athlete. And it turns out he's right. There's a hunger out there nobody's feeding. Standing beside his open trunk, Phil realizes something that will carry him through every disaster to come. Belief is irresistible. A company is really just the people foolish enough to join it, and Phil's first recruits are a gallery of beautiful oddballs. Jeff Johnson, a zealot who writes Phil feverish, single-spaced letters about shoes, dreams about shoes, practically bleeds shoe. Bob Waddell, a young man paralyzed in an accident, who rolls into the office in a wheelchair and says, essentially, "Don't you dare pity me. I'm here to win." Delbert Hayes, a brilliant, oversized accountant who drinks too much and sees numbers like music. None of them fit anywhere else. That's the point. Phil doesn't hire the polished. He hires the obsessed, the wounded, the overlooked, people with something to prove. They will fight with each other constantly, and they will follow this shy, mumbling boss straight into the fire again and again because he sees them. Here's the trap Phil builds for himself. Every year, he doubles sales. And every year, doubling nearly kills him. Because to sell twice as many shoes, he has to order twice as many, pay Japan up front months before a single customer pays him. So the more he succeeds, the more desperate he is for cash. His banker is horrified. The man keeps lecturing Phil about equity, about slowing down, about safety. But Phil can't slow down. Stop pedaling, and Adidas eats him alive. So he lives permanently on the knife's edge, every account drained to zero, betting the whole company on next season, every single season. It is a terrifying way to live, and it's the only way he knows how. Grow or die. There's no version of this where he coasts. Then the ground opens under him. Onitsuka, the Japanese company whose shoes are his entire business, sends a cold new executive named Kitami to visit. Something feels wrong, and during the visit, Phil finds himself alone for a moment with Kitami's open briefcase. Inside is a folder. He shouldn't look. He looks. It's a list. 18 American companies. Distributors, replacements. Onitsuka is quietly shopping for someone to fire Phil and take everything he's built. His hands go cold. The partner he's trusted, flown across the ocean to court, begged and charmed, is preparing to erase him. He closes the folder and says nothing, smiling through dinner. But in that instant, a decision hardens in him. If they're going to leave him, he will not be caught defenseless. He needs his own shoe, his own name, his own future. Phil needs a mark for shoes that don't exist yet, made by a company that isn't ready. He asks a young design student at Portland State, Carolyn Davidson, to sketch something that suggests motion, speed, a little wing. She brings back options. He picks one, a fat, swooping checkmark, mostly because the clock is running out. He is not impressed. "I don't love it," he tells her. "Maybe it'll grow on me." He pays her $35 and sends her on her way. $35. For the logo that will one day sit on the chests of the greatest athletes who ever lived, recognized in every country on earth. But that's the thing about the future. Nobody in the room ever knows they're standing in it. To Phil, right now, it's just a squiggle he can live with. He still needs the hardest thing of all, a name. They're out of time. The first shoes are being boxed in Japan, and the factory needs a brand to stamp on them. Tomorrow. Phil hates every idea on the table. His own favorite, Dimension 6, makes everyone wince. He's ready to just pick something, anything. Then the phone rings at dawn. It's Jeff Johnson, the zealot. He says the name came to him in a dream. He sat bolt upright in bed with it. One word. Nike. And somewhere in the back of Phil's mind, a small ruined temple on a hill in Athens lights up. The goddess of victory. He's not even sure he likes it, but there's no time, and something about it feels inevitable. Nike, he says. Spell it. Nike. He wires the word to Japan. The goddess finally has her company, and the company finally has its name. Meanwhile, Bowerman is obsessed with a different problem. Traction. Runners need grip without weight. One Sunday morning at breakfast, staring at the waffles on his plate, the old coach has a vision. All those little squares flipped over, biting into the track. So he grabs his wife's waffle iron, pours in liquid urethane, and clamps it shut. He forgot one thing. Nothing to keep the rubber from bonding to the metal. The iron seals shut forever, ruined. His wife is not amused, but Bowerman has seen it now, and he can't unsee it. He tries again and again, until he's got a flat rubber sole studded with little raised squares that grip the road like nothing before it. The waffle sole. Born from a wrecked kitchen appliance and an old man who refused to eat breakfast in peace. 1972. A trade show in Chicago. Blue Ribbon lays out its first ever Nikes on a table, in loud orange boxes, the fresh swooshes on the sides slightly crooked, the glue barely dry. A skeptical retailer picks one up, frowns at the mark, and asks, "What is that thing? What's a swoosh?" Phil could give a corporate answer. Instead, the truth just flies out of him. "It's the sound," he says, "of someone going past you." The room goes quiet, because that's it. That's the whole company in one sentence, not the leader. The one coming up fast behind you, about to blow by. The orders start coming. The crooked little logo is out in the world now, on real shoes, on real feet. Nike is alive, and that is precisely when the sky falls. Onitsuka finds out about Nike, and they detonate. They cut Phil off completely. No more Tiger shoes, the product line that is still most of his income, and they sue him. Phil, cornered, sues them right back. Someone once told him business is war without bullets, and now he's living it. His supplier has become his enemy. His cash is gone. His lawyers cost money he doesn't have, and his brand new brand is all he's got left to sell. One misstep, and 8 years of work vanish. Most people at this point fold. Take the loss. Get the real job. Tell the story at parties. Phil looks at the impossible odds. The bigger company, the bottomless legal budget, the ticking clock on his loans, and does the only thing he's ever known how to do. He digs in. He does not stop. In the middle of all that fear, the company finds its soul. His name is Steve Prefontaine. Pre, a fearless young distance runner from small-town Oregon who runs like he's got a personal grudge against losing. He doesn't pace himself. He goes to the front and dares the world to catch him. "Somebody may beat me," Pre says, "but they're going to have to bleed to do it." Phil is spellbound, because Pre isn't selling shoes. Pre is the thing the shoes were always about: guts, art, the refusal to hold anything back. Pre becomes the face of Nike when Nike can barely afford a face. For the first time, Phil understands that this squabbling, broke, lawsuit-ridden little company means something. It stands for a way of competing, a way of living, and it whispers the same thing that Fogbound Road did years ago. Just don't stop. 1974. It all comes down to a courtroom in Portland. Onitsuka against Blue Ribbon, everything on the line. And on the stand, Phil is terrible. Sweating, fumbling, so protective of his story he can barely tell it. He walks out, sure he's lost the company. But here's the turn. When Onitsuka's own man takes the stand, he lies and gets caught in it. The translation exposing the contradiction in open court. The judge sees exactly who's telling the truth. The verdict comes down for Phil. Onitsuka pays him a settlement, and more importantly, the tiger is off his back for good. He should feel triumphant. Mostly he feels the ground still shaking, because winning the war didn't refill the bank account. And the biggest near-death of all is 1 year away, waiting. 1975. Blue Ribbon owes its Japanese partner $1 million. And to make the payment on time, Phil's team does something clever and reckless. They run the money through the accounts fast, betting the deposits will clear in time. They don't. Suddenly, $1 million is simply gone into the gap. Paychecks bounce, and Phil's bank, already nervous, takes one look and does the unthinkable. It freezes every account and calls the FBI. The word they use is fraud. Phil sits there and absorbs it. After 13 years, everything he built, everyone who trusted him, is one phone call from prison and ruin. There is no clever move left, no shoe to sell his way out, just a shy man at a desk, staring at the end of everything. This is the morning the crazy idea finally runs out of road. Salvation comes from the direction Phil least deserves it. His Japanese trading partner, Nisho, sends its people to comb through the wreckage of his books. They find the desperate maneuver. They find a secret factory he'd hidden even from them. Everything. Phil braces to be destroyed. Instead, one of their own men quietly admits he'd been bending rules for years to keep Little Blue Ribbon alive because he believed in it. And their steely executive, Ito, closes the books, considers this reckless American who gambled everything, and forgives him. There are worse things, he says, than ambition. Then Nisho pays off the entire bank debt, on the spot, in full. The federal case evaporates. Phil is saved, not by a maneuver, not by cash, but by people who decided he was worth trusting. It was never just about the numbers. It was always about who stood with him. And then, that same year, the worst kind of loss, the kind money can't touch. Pre, days after another electric race, dies in a car crash on a dark Oregon road. He is 24. The running world stops breathing. Bowerman, who coached him, is hollowed out. The place where his car came to rest becomes a shrine. Strangers leave, running shoes on the stone. Phil grieves a young man who embodied everything the company believed and never got to see how the story ended. It's the moment Nike stops being a business in Phil's mind and becomes something closer to a family, one that can win and lose and bleed. Pre had a line about racing being a work of art. Phil carries it now like a wound and a compass, and he keeps the company running because that's what Pre would have done. Out of all that fear and grief, the Misfits build something nobody planned, a culture. Once a year, the leadership escapes to the coast for brutal, hilarious, no-holds-barred meetings they nicknamed the Butt Face because you had to be one to survive them. They shout at each other. They insult each other mercilessly, and they take a bullet for each other. The paralyzed man, the hard-drinking genius, the zealot, the lawyer built like a grizzly. This is a company held together not by org charts, but by loyalty and shared scars. The waffle-soled shoes are catching fire across America now. The running boom is real. The company finally renames itself, officially, Nike. The squiggle Phil didn't even like is becoming the most wanted mark in sports. The band of oddballs from the trunk of a Valiant is turning into an empire, and empires attract new enemies. Just as Nike breaks through, the US government hands Phil a bill for $25 million, an ancient customs rule his competitors quietly weaponized to bury him. It's a death sentence, dressed as paperwork. Around the same time, Nike's new ad campaign puts 4 words on the wall. There is no finish line. Phil reads that bill and almost laughs. No finish line, all right. So he fights the way only he would. He builds a cheap shoe just to turn the rule against itself, wraps it in a patriotic ad, and sues the government for $25 million right back. It's audacious, it's a little insane, and it works. The government blinks and settles for a fraction. Phil wins again, but every win costs a piece of him, and a new question is rising that no lawsuit can answer. How long can one man keep carrying all of this alone? By 1980, Nike is too big to stay private. To fund the next leap, everyone tells Phil the same thing: go public, sell shares. And Phil hates it with his whole body. Because going public means letting strangers own a piece of the thing he bled for. It means the market, not Phil, could one day decide who runs Nike. To a man whose deepest fear is losing control of his crazy idea, it feels like handing your child to a crowd. His people are divided. The arguments are ferocious. In the end, he finds a structure that lets outsiders buy in while he keeps the wheel. 2 classes of stock, control locked in his hands. He agrees to do the one thing he swore he never would. And the night before happens, he can't sleep. December 2nd, 1980. Nike goes public. In a single morning, on paper, Phil Knight becomes worth $178 million. The crazy idea from the foggy road has come true beyond any sane measure. This is the mountaintop. This is where the music should swell. And Phil wakes up the next day, in the same fog, in a world that looks exactly the same, and feels, of all things, regret. He asks himself what he's feeling, and the honest answer stuns him. He wishes he could do it all over again. Not the money, the struggle, the trunk of the car, the impossible odds, the nights it almost died. The winning was never the point. The running was the point. And now the race he loved is, in a way, over. Remember the tease from the start? This is it. The richest morning of his life tastes like loss. Years later, an older Phil looks back and tries to name what it all meant. He thinks about the athletes who became like sons to him, about Bowerman, gone now, and the friends he buried, about factories on the other side of the world, and a mark that outran them all. And he lands on a truth that the 24-year-old on the road could never have known. It was never just business. It never is. If it ever becomes just business, just money, just numbers, that means the business has gone bad. Everything that mattered was the people, the belief, the shared refusal to quit. The shoes were only ever a way to say something about how to live. And Phil, who once couldn't even name his own company, finally understands what he was really building all along. So what would he tell you? You, standing at the start of your own road with your own crazy idea that everyone's calling foolish. He'd tell you to hit pause. Think hard about how you want to spend your days and who you want beside you. And then, seek a calling. Even if you don't know what that means yet, seek it. The people who tell you to never give up are selling something. But giving up and stopping are not the same. You can fail, you can fall, you can lose everything and start over. Just don't stop moving toward the thing that's yours. That's the whole secret of the shy accountant who built Nike out of belief and a housewife's Christmas money. Not talent, not luck, just this, whispered on a foggy road at 24 and carried for a lifetime. Don't ever stop.